Okay, so to get started, I'm going to show you a couple of things that I should have had available when we did the sponges. And then I'm going to show you some organisms in my aquarium that are in the group we're going to start talking about. So first of all, we're going to start talking about the cnidarians, phylum Cnidaria. This includes sea anemones, corals, and jellyfish. So I'm going to show you some coral in the aquarium. But first, I'm going to show you two different kinds of sponges. So can you all see that? Looks like it. Okay, so this is a glass sponge, the skeleton of a glass sponge. And they come from deep in the ocean. And if we zoom in, I'm doing this from an old phone, so it's kind of amazing that it's working. Look at the details and how the glass is arranged. And this right in the center, that is actually the claw of a shrimp that used to live inside there. So you can see there's no way it could have gotten out when it was that big. There's claws of a couple of different ones. Let's see if this one shows up. There's another one. And fiber optics, they were talking about, are these fibers down here. You can see some are quite long, and nobody knows why or if it's an accident, but they have very high quality fiber optic properties. So they will take light through it. And again, there's a couple claws there. And just the patterns of the spicules here is just really amazing to me. Anyway, and this is a normal sponge, one that doesn't have the hard spicules, it has the spongin. Okay, and you can see it's squishy, and this is this absorbs water and everything, and you use it just like a kitchen sponge. Let me see if I can zoom in on it and keep it focused. And you can see the fibers, and all those fibers are spongin. Okay. All right, now I'm going to walk away the computer. If something happens and you can't see from the phone or you can't hear me, someone please unmute, tell me. Okay. Hope you don't make anybody sick. Okay, so this is the aquarium. And there are fish things in there, but that's not the thing I want to show you right now. There's still different kinds of soft corals in here and one hard coral. So you can see this is a mushroom coral. This down here that's hard to see. See if I can get it. No. I can see it with my eyes. Oh, there it is. This is another one. This one here, the hard coral. So this is more like the ones that build the reef that you think about typically. It has a calcium carbonate skeleton and then just the polyps on the surface. There's another soft coral, as is this one. And ones I've seen the pictures already. Let's see if I can get focused, but they're in the way, aren't they? Those are a coral. and the yellow sponge was underneath them. They're all out in the daytime right now, so I can't focus on the sponge. They're bringing it up. That's a sun, another coral. Next to it is a worm. It's a tube worm, a fan worm. And these are the type of mushroom coral. When we got them, there's one of those and spread. It reduced and spread across the rock. But anyway, those are some things we'll be talking about. Let's see if these are open. This one, she'll probably have to shine a light on. This one we collected in Galveston. It's a sea anemone, not coral. Right there. That's a sea anemone we collected off the rocks in Galveston. There's also a decker crab in here. And some other fish. We'll be talking about some of these later. Here's another sea anemone right to the side of the decorated crab. It's a very small one, but there's a larger one here in the corner. Okay. All right. So I've had a couple of people say they've had trouble with the Porphyra assignment. If you're one of them, stay with me after class and I'll work with you. Some people have been able to get onto it, so I'm not sure what the issue is. And I've talked to a couple of you with the Google Docs assignments. Sometimes if you re-sign into your Gmail, it helps. Not always, but sometimes that will help. And we can share screens with each other, and I will work with anybody that's still having trouble with it after class. And if that doesn't work, remember there's the technology hotline that will help you with things like that too. And there's a link to that in my Schoology page. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen and we'll get started. Okay, so phylum Cnidaria. It's a strange word. It has a silent C. So it's pronounced Cnidaria, but it looks like Cnidaria or something like that. There we go. So have anybody ever been stung by a jellyfish? Let me see if I can do a poll, if I can get those to work. Hold on, I want to use these polls, but I haven't quite figured out how to get it to work. So let's just try this. Actually, we'll just do it this way. Okay, so has anybody ever been stung by a jellyfish? A is yes, B is no. Couple of you, okay. I guess that shouldn't surprise me too much since we live in the desert, but it's not fun, is it? We have 2 people that said they've been stung by jellyfish. Yeah, it's not a lot of fun. The ones we have around the United States are painful, but not super dangerous. Most of them, there's one of them that if you get in it bad enough, it can cause you some problems, and we'll talk about it. I've been stung by them several times. I used to work in the ocean, and it would not be uncommon. The only one there's only one I've been stung by that was bad enough that it actually gave me stomach cramps and things like that. The other ones just hurt. But we'll talk about that more. And how should you treat a jellyfish sting? And the one most people have always heard of is pee on it, right? Turns out that's not a good thing to do. And a lot of the things that they tell you to do actually make it worse. I'm not sure if the urine makes it worse or not, but it's gross and it doesn't help anything.
we'll talk about some of the things you can do for jellyfish stings. Not that that's going to happen very often here in the desert, but. Okay, so some characteristics of phylum Cnidaria. They have true tissues. Unlike the sponges, but like every other animal, they do have tissues. They have cells that work together, they have muscles, they have nerves. They have what we call radial symmetry. We haven't talked about symmetry, but what you may have learned this before. A sponge has no symmetry. It's not symmetrical. Beetles and us are bilaterally symmetrical. That means you can draw a line down the center and the two sides are mirror images. Cnidaria are radially symmetrical. It's more like a pizza. You can draw a line on several different ways and get a mirror image on each side, okay? They have stinging cells, and those stinging cells are called nematocysts on the tentacles and elsewhere. The tentacles surround the mouth. And they have a gastrovascular cavity, which is a stomach, but they don't have a digestive tract like us. They only have one opening to the digestive tract. Then it serves as both the mouth and the anus. You're glad we aren't like that? Be kind of gross. You eat, and instead of going to the bathroom, you just throw up. That's how these organisms do it. The sea anemone that I showed you, it's very easy to watch. You can give it a fish, swallow it, it will digest it, and then it will spit up what's left of the fish. There are 4 classes of cnidarians, and you are going to need to know these. The hydrozoa. Hydro means water, so this is water animals. They're called hydroids, simply enough. Scyphozoa, or the jellyfish. Scyph means cup. Anthozoa, which are the sea anemones and the corals. This means flower animal. Antho means flower. And then cubozoa, which are the sea wasps and the box jellyfish. Cubo, they're box jellyfish, square jellyfish. Not totally square, but you'll see why they call them that when we get to them. Okay, so strange thing about cnidarians is most of the organisms, not all of them, but a lot of them, have 2 body forms. They have a medusa, which is this one. A medusa form. The medusa is what you think of as a jellyfish. Okay, and then you have the polyp form, and the polyp is what you think of as a sea anemone. And some organisms have both of these stages in their life cycle. But any one of the cnidarians you can look at, you can see that it's either a medusa or a polyp form. Some of them will have both, some of them only have one. Here's another example. Here's the polyps. They're going to be attached to something, and the tentacles will be pointing upwards usually. The medusa are not attached. They swim through the water like a jellyfish, and they are not going to be attached typically. There's a lot of terms here. I'm not going to make you learn all of those. Okay, so Medusa gets its name from Greek mythology. Medusa had the snakes in her hair, and someone thought that the Medusa form looks like that. This one, kind of like snaky hair, I guess. So here's an example of the polyp form. This is actually of a jellyfish. You see it's attached to the rock. It just ate a little crustacean. And it will take it inside, will digest it, and then it will regurgitate it after they regurgitate what's left. This is the same species, and this is the polyp form. You can see this is a polyp, and it's giving birth to medusas. I'm sorry, so this is still a polyp, but you see it's got this stack of little saucers, and one just came off, and that is a little medusa, and it's going to grow up into a jellyfish. We'll talk about this more later. They actually alternate between sexual and asexual reproduction. What we just saw was obviously asexual reproduction, budding off individual little jellyfish. So the nematocysts, these are pretty amazing. The things that sting you, this is what it looks like. It has an operculum like the sponge, but when they're triggered by whatever various techniques they use to trigger, this turns inside out and ejects, and it's like a harpoon. And the outside is covered in the venom, and the top injects into whatever it's stinging and injects the venom. Here you can see a picture of the thread that's all coiled up inside. This is the activated and the unactivated stinging cells, nematocyst. So here's
when the trigger is touched, the
little
capsule
video
becomes
talking about
leaky. Water diffuses inward and the barbed thread is forced inside out.
You see it's got barbs on the top and little spines along the side as well. This is under a microscope, and they actually added a chemical that made them all trigger. And if they touch you, this is what's going to happen. Thousands of these little cells are going to shoot into you and inject the venom. And you can see it's very fast. This is real time. It goes from nothing to, you can't even see them come out in this speed. And like I said, that's what's injecting the venom. Here's a computer animation showing the same thing.
Inside each of these nematocysts, a coiled tube bathed in venom. When triggered, the nematocyst explodes into the victim at 10,000 times the force of gravity. Like a sock being pulled inside out, the tube everts, releasing venom from all sides of the harpoon directly into the bloodstream.
And typically they use it to sting fish, the things they want to eat. But if it bumps into you, it will sting you as well. So the first class we're going to talk about are the hydrozoas, class Hydrozoa. It means water animal. They usually have both the polyp and the medusa stage. The hydra is a freshwater solitary animal. I've never seen one in the wild. I think we probably have some in New Mexico, but I've never seen them. The hydrozoans and the Portuguese man-o-war, which you may have heard of if you've gone to the beach and seen, they are not an actual jellyfish. They're a hydroid, a hydrozoan. And again, hydrozoa means water animal. They are mostly water, all of the cnidarians. And hydras get their name from the mythical monster that Hercules fought, that every time you cut off one head, more of them grow back. Here's an example of a hydra. This is a crustacean, and it bumps into the tentacle, and you see it stings it, it sticks to it. Now they're going to speed it up so you can see it, bring it towards the mouth. And it's pushed inside, and then it will be digested. You can see there's already a couple of them inside. It will digest them and then spit out the shells or whatever it can't digest through its mouth again. These are hydroids. At the ocean, they usually look like this. They're in colonies, so there's lots of them stuck together. The freshwater ones are not colonial, they're individual. This was on the side of an aquarium I had set up before I moved here, and these are hydroids, and you can just barely see this, and they retract. So those are hydroids just growing on the side of the aquarium. The Portuguese man-o-war. These have a really nasty sting. They're probably the worst sting of the jellyfish in the United States. They're found all over the world though. And it's not actually a jellyfish. Okay, so what are the stinging cells of cnidarians called? Let me see if I can get this to work again. I guess I'm going to have to put a new question up. See how long this takes. Yeah, too long. Okay, I think I know how to do it now though, so.
I have a question.
Yes.
Could you possibly post this keynote on Schoology?
Yes, I've been doing the videos, but I can do a PDF of the keynotes as well if you like.
Okay, yeah, just for the guided notes. That would help.
Yeah, I will do that. I should have been doing that all along, I guess, but yeah, I will start doing that.
All right, thank you.
Remember, the guided notes are for you. They're for you to study. You're not going to turn them in, but they are a good thing to do so you'll know what to study for on the test. So the answers to the study guide will all be straight from the guided notes. Okay, so the stinging cells of cnidarians are called nematocysts. Okay. So why do they call them Portuguese man-o-war? Well, the man-o-war was a type of ship, and this is a Portuguese man-o-war. And the shape is kind of like the balloon on the animal, sort of, I guess. Anyway, it was enough that that's what they called them. And this is what it looks like. And you can see this does look a little bit like a sailing ship. Now, the interesting thing is each part of this, each tentacle, the balloon, everything is an individual animal. It's a colony of hundreds or thousands of different animals. The tentacles can stretch out and retract. And when they stretch out, some of these can be over 100 feet long. And when you touch the balloon, you can see that it changes shape. It's alive, and it's not just a balloon, it's a living animal attached to the rest of these. Very pretty colors. There's also something called a man-o-war fish that lives around the tentacles. They're not immune to the venom, they're just fast enough that they hang out around the tentacles without getting stung, and that protects them from other fish. So it's a colonial organism, and there are 4 types of polyps attached to it. And each one has a name. The pneumatophore is the sail or the air bladder. If you step on these on the beach, they actually pop like a balloon. And I see people doing that on the beach a lot. Just don't do it barefooted, because next to it are the tentacles for the dactylozoids, which means finger animal. These are the tentacles, which can be up to 50 meters long. Then there's gastrozooids, stomach animal, which are for digestion, and the gonozooids, which are the reproductive animals, and their whole job is reproduction. And each one of these is a separate organism bound together in a colony. Their stings are pretty bad, pretty uncomfortable. I've not been stung this bad. I've gotten small stings from them. If you get enough of the tentacles on you, it can be painful enough you'd want to go to the doctor. Very, very seldom has anybody been killed by them, but it does happen. This is a video from Australia showing what happens when a bunch of swimmers go into a huge school of, they call them blue bottles in Australia, but they're the same thing, the Portuguese man-o-war.
Hundreds of swimmers are off Bondi competing in the Ocean Classic. Now, they're suddenly desperate to get back to shore.
Hey, on the back of the mat, hurry, swift!
The water is swarming with Portuguese man-o-war, commonly known as blue bottles. The masses of jellyfish have blown in on the wind. Their long tentacles entwine themselves around swimmers. Swimmers crowd into the clubbies, inflatables and surf boats. But as lifeguards scramble, hundreds more unwitting swimmers head towards the swarm. As senior lifeguard on the beach, Kerbox decides to take drastic action.
People are getting flogged by bluebottles in here when the race stops right now.
Kerbox and Terry pick up the most serious cases and ferry them to shore.
Hang on, play that box, like that, please. She's got a little face. Oh. Yeah. Oh, where is she? Pull it off the chin. Pull it off the chin.
The bluebottle's searing sting can be as painful as multiple bee stings and last for hours. The toxin enters the bloodstream and can also affect the glands. The result is severe pain, shock, and in extreme cases, even cardiac arrest. Injured swimmers still stream in. While scores are treated on the beach, Reedy and Tom take 16-year-old James to the tower.
What's happening is your lymph nodes are taken to the main lymphatic ducts, which end down here in your abdomen, and that's why you're getting a lot of pain. It's going to last for about half an hour. Just keep breathing.
Ambulances ferry the worst cases to hospital. Among the lifeguards, Dino is the worst hit.
Coming up by the second. Everybody stopped and I'm like, shark, shark. And then they're like, blue bottles. And I'm like, only a couple of blue bottles. I can swim through this. And then they were just wrapped around my whole body. It's the worst I've been stung in my whole life, for sure.
It was like the Titanic had sunk out there at one stage. You had like 100 people looking for help, and there was some really bad stings, some of the best I've ever seen. I mean, they were basically walking on water, trying to climb up onto the skeet. They just wanted out of the water.
So anyway, the Portuguese man of war can be pretty painful. They have caused deaths, but that's really rare. It's usually just extreme pain. The detached tentacles can sting for weeks. Remember, the tentacles are not just, it's not like cutting the arm off of something. The tentacle is an individual animal, and it can stay alive drifting through the water and continue stinging for weeks. The best way to treat them is hot water to ease the pain and denature the toxins. Believe it or not, also meat tenderizer. Meat tenderizer has enzymes that can break down the proteins that make the stinging stop and keep you from getting stung by anything else. Okay, so true or false, the Portuguese man of war is a single animal? And the answer is, of course, false. It's multiple animals joined together. This is the by the wind sailor. It's kind of like a miniature Portuguese man of war. The sting isn't near as bad and the tentacles aren't near as long. I've seen these wash ashore before. And the interesting thing is the shape of the sail. There's left-handed ones and right-handed ones. And when the wind's blowing, it will blow each form in a different direction. So if you have a swarm of them, the wind blows, it will split the swarm. And so they'll be distributed to different parts of the ocean because the wind is going to blow each one a different way. And like I said, they're pretty small. They were in the news last year because a lot of them were washing ashore on Corpus Christi and places like that. Very interesting little animals. I've seen them a few times. Okay, let's just start talking about this. How big do you think the biggest jellyfish is? Anybody know? The biggest is
the lion jellyfish.
There you go. The lion's mane jellyfish. Very good. The bell can get up to 7.5 feet across and it can weigh 400 pounds. The tentacles can reach more than 100 feet. It's one of the longest animals. Yeah, very good. The lion's mane jellyfish is the largest jellyfish. They look kind of strange on the beach. They're usually in cold water. People always ask me if they're dangerous to people. You're not usually going to be swimming in the water with these because you can see he's got a full wetsuit on. It's usually cold water. They do sting though. Okay, so don't believe everything you see on the internet. They're not this big. This is a photoshopped picture that you see on the internet a lot when you look up lion's mane jellyfish. And if they're 7 feet long and this guy is 6 feet tall, this is probably 20 feet across. So no, they don't get that big. They're a big problem for fishermen. Look at this net's just full of them. In November of 2009, the lion's mane or the Namura jellyfish sank a 10-ton fishing trawler. The boat was capsized off Chiba in Japan. Its 3-man crew was trying to haul in the net, and it had dozens of these. Remember, each one could weigh 400 pounds. Multiply that by dozens, and that's a lot of weight. Okay, so the largest jellyfish can be up to 400 pounds.
These are no ordinary jellyfish. Known as the Nomura jellyfish, big ones can be 6 feet in diameter and weigh as much as 450 pounds. Fishing towns along the coast of Japan have been inundated with them for the past 5 years. The jellyfish have become a problem for the Japanese fishing industry. Sometimes they get stuck inside fishing nets, smothering the fish inside. Other times, the poison from their tentacles discolors the fish, reducing their market value. They also clog nets and make it harder to bring in the catch. Last year, the Japanese government recorded some 50,000 incidents of jellyfish trouble for fishermen. Ryoichi Yoshida owns a fishing boat on the island of Oki in the Sea of Japan, some 40 miles off the coast. He has 3 fixed nets, which his crew hauls in each day, starting before dawn. Recently, they always find dozens of jellyfish as well as the fish they want to catch. They hurt the fish and create lots of extra work for his crew. Kozo Otsu works on the other side of Oki, studying jellyfish. Some of them are too heavy to haul aboard, even with the help of a colleague. It's crucial to be well equipped. On this day, he's wearing rubber dungarees and a thick jacket. He also has to make sure he gets the jellyfish goo out of his to prevent swelling. Professor Otsu still has a scar on his arm from a jellyfish sting years ago. He has a background in electrophysiology, but converted to jellyfish study in 2003 after the outbreaks became a problem. The jellyfish appear to drift into the Sea of Japan from the west, bobbing just under the surface of the water. While no one's completely sure why they're arriving in such numbers, Japanese scientists think they're coming from the Chinese coast. Some guess there's a connection with China's rapid industrialization and pollution problems. Others say it has to do with global warming, which could be making it easier for the jellyfish to breed and grow. The Chinese government denies that China is the cause of this outbreak. From Oki in Japan, I'm Sebastian Moffat, reporting for the Wall Street Journal.
Okay, so that's where we'll stop today. Tomorrow we'll go into more detail about jellyfish. Let me stop sharing.